Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everybody, welcome to Uncommon Sense. I'm June Udone and thank you for joining us. My guest today is Cathy West Mullins. Cathy, an established photographer, served as the trustee of Children's Hospital and Regional Medical Center in Seattle for 20 years. Cathy also supported and worked beside her husband Andrew Mullins in his Episcopal ministry in Seattle and New York City. Welcome, Cathy. There are many media for an artist to investigate. How did you come to pick the one you did?
I am a professional photographer and I have an art history background, and it made sense to me to incorporate my art history work with photography. And photography was a means for me to get outdoors. I mainly do landscapes, and also the ability to travel. So I enjoy what I do, and I go around the world taking photographs.
And why do you like the outside so much?
Well, I was raised in Seattle, and it's pretty hard to avoid being sports-minded in Seattle, Washington. So I grew up skiing and playing tennis and hiking quite a bit, and skiing with my family. And so it was a natural part of my life and throughout growing up. And when I moved to New York in 1998, I had to figure out a way that I could get outside and do things, and that photography was that medium that allowed me to do that.
And what do you look for? What attracts you as worthy of a scene or a shot?
I tend to work in the an hour and a half before sunrise and an hour and a half after sunset, which is low light and a lot of shadows, and that's what I mainly do. But also it's the ambiance, the lighting, the atmosphere, the mystery.
The mystery, that's what I'm thinking.
The serenity. So.
Do you keep the f-stop the same?
Oh no. Although I have to say I have finally gone digital, which was a major achievement for me, that I like using very slow film and a tripod. And so I work the camera, my digital camera now, manually, and change the f-stop and exposure and things like that to get the kind of effects I want. I like long exposures.
Because?
They capture more of the image and the light, and it's just what I'm used to, how I work.
And what is considered a long exposure from your point of view?
Well, it depends on if I want. In Venice, I took very early in the morning gondolas in the water just off of San Marco Square that was blown out, which is the effect I wanted, and that was probably a minute and a half. It was dark, but it was that long of an exposure.
What did you have to learn switching to digital?
Oh my goodness, it was a steep learning curve. The one thing I had to learn was that the camera is so smart that it's hard to override what the camera sees. And I like the serendipity of, you never know with film what you might get or achieve. And there are often happy accidents. And that's what I miss the most about working with a digital camera.
More confining?
It is, for me. It is a little more confining, but it allowed me, I have a camera that has a digital mode on it, a video mode on it, which has taken me to do digital film documentaries. And so that in itself is a happy accident, that it forced me to become interested in doing more video. so far I've done 2 documentaries, and one on Granite Mine, Montana, and the current one I'm working on contemporary sheep herding and sheep ranching. And I went to Idaho and Rome to film the sheep herding industry in those 2 areas.
Were they different?
Oh, extremely. Very different. In Rome, they're still grazing sheep along the Appia Antica, and the sheep herder pays the city of Rome to graze his sheep, and which keeps the grass mowed and fertilizes the ground. And they sell the sheep's cheese in a old fortress from the 1500s. It's now used as a farmhouse, but and in Idaho, the sheep are raised for their meat, and they take them up to the high altitudes during the summer for grazing and fattening up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, when you got that wonderful award, tell us about that. Is that the time you did that documentary? Or
Well, yes.
Tell us about the award. That was really impressive.
I made a proposal to the American Academy in Rome on this particular project, contemporary sheep ranching and sheep herding, and it was accepted. And so my husband and I went to Rome for 3 weeks while I schlepped out to the park to film the sheep there, and also, an important part of my proposal was the Maremma dogs, which are the indigenous sheep guard dogs of Italy. And I went out to a kennel in Todi to film the Maremma dogs, which are huge.
Tell us about that.
They're gigantic. And they're very unusual in that they will not leave the flock. They stay and guard the flock. They don't chase the predator. They don't go after the predator. And the particular person that I was visiting, Roberto, raises and ships his dogs all over the world as home and people guard dogs. And so they're very efficient.
What do they look like?
Well, they are similar to the Great White Pyrenees, which are also used for sheep guard dogs. But the other dogs train the Maremmas. You cannot train a Maremma, but the puppies are learned from the older dogs, and they're very strong.
And strong-minded.
Very strong-minded, and it used to be the Romans would take them to war to fight their enemies during the ancient days. So
how did they tell what an enemy was?
who held on to the leash?
Oh, yeah.
Was the good guy.
That's what for years,
Yeah, right.
My late husband and I also had working dogs, Briards, and I missed that I don't have that now. So, but another strong-minded.
Yes, I'm familiar with Briards.
When you were doing this project, did you respect that early morning and after sunset time frame?
I did. And not to film the dogs, of course,
right.
But yes, I did. And I would travel around Rome on foot, shooting at various times. And you know, some of the most interesting things happen after dark. And so well, you never know who you're going to run into or what back alley you're going to walk down, or you know what happens. So
did you have a dog with you?
No. No.
So how much film did you have to shoot? So now you didn't call it film, but whatever footage did you
right
in order to get the material sufficient to choose what you wanted to have in the final cut?
I always overshoot because to get the effect or the result that I want. And my plan is to make the documentary that I'm working on now into a 50-minute, 60-minute documentary because I have so much footage. And so it's very intense. A lot of nuances, and editing is very...
Something you had to learn.
Oh, I learned it all.
How did you learn it?
Well, I just read my little camera manual and then bought some books and I also go to Apple for their one-to-ones to get help with the professional app that I'm using on doing the filming.
Oh, I really admire that.
Well, it's a labor of love.
It is a labor of love.
No, it is.
Where do these ideas come from?
It's sort of there is a common theme in terms of my work. I had a Samoyed for a number of years, and as a result of having the Samoyed, I spun his dog hair and wove the fabric. And so between dogs and outdoors and attempting to be creative, it's very satisfying, the combination of all of that.
You developed a whole other part of your life when you were in Hawaii and in these various sports. That was a different type of talent, wasn't it?
It was. I was an art docent, and I trained for 2 years to become an art docent because the collection is so diverse. And that, living in Hawaii at that time was challenging, just because it was so long ago, and we would get the evening news 24 hours late because it depended on when the satellite went over the island. But it certainly offered many other opportunities. And that was one, working at the Honolulu Academy of Art was one of them.
Now, you're married to a retired Episcopalian priest, but he was active at that time.
Yes.
And were you active in the church sort of as his wife, or what? How did that work out?
Well,
if I may ask, don't feel you have to answer.
No. Actually, it worked to my benefit because we both, we were married in 1996, and I had already had a career to some extent in Seattle in terms of being a volunteer. Yes. I was on various boards and very visible in the community. And so when we decided to get married and we decided to move to New York, I already had my identity. I had already laid out sort of my life path. And I was able to say, it's not a twofer, you know.
Yes.
You are hiring Andrew, and I certainly am supportive and caring about his mission and what he's doing, but it was not a done deal that I would be the one answering the phone calls or, you know, the receptionist at the church.
So that sense of independence, do you think that's nurtured by nature, so to speak, by being outdoors and doing outdoor things?
I think I've been lucky in growing up in Seattle and having the exposure that I have in living in Honolulu, living in Boston. I was able to complete my degree from the University of Washington and Harvard at that time of living in Boston. And there are no accidents. You make your own luck. You make things happen. And I've always been curious and able to land on my feet. And the year at Harvard was certainly one of the best things I've done. I can number about 5 things that really have been life-changing for me. One, the American Academy in Rome, climbing Mount Rainier, and my 1 year at Harvard as an undergraduate. It was fabulous, and it just it made an impact on my work as a photographer. I studied with 17th century Dutch art with Seymour Slive, and it just was a revelation to me. It was wonderful.
The joy persists.
Yeah, right.
I feel it
right.
in your discussion. So there are no accidents. What is your thought on that?
Well,
what do you mean by that?
I think you make things happen, and I certainly my path hasn't always been straight and narrow or easy, but it's been good. And I decided I wanted to complete my degree, and we were living in Boston. I thought, well, I'll go to Harvard and see what they say. If they'll allow me to complete my work, as I was shy just 2 quarters. And they said yes, to my amazement, and I did extremely well. I was an older student. I was a mature student. And so that was really very positive for me to know that I could compete with the best and do just fine scholastically.
Gives you a confidence.
Oh, extremely, extremely.
What was it like in Rome?
Oh, my goodness.
In terms of confidence?
Well, that was a huge endorsement for my work, and the approval of I was on the right track and doing good things.
I always feel travel gives a bracketed time for when we can experience life somewhat differently if we let it in. And we come back, or at least I'm speaking of myself, a quarter turn, I won't say different, but perception re-emphasized one place or another. Did you have that experience? Did you come back to America after these 3 weeks saying,
Well, certainly. We spent the 3 weeks in Rome, and then we went on to Venice, and we were going to Paris, and we were in Paris the day after the terrorist attacks. So that's certainly we had a perfect, wonderful time in Rome, and would walk down the hill and go to restaurants, and just the atmosphere was just exciting and exhilarating. And then to spend wonderful time in Venice and then take the train, and not knowing whether we would be allowed to go through to cross the borders, and then to arrive in Paris. It was hard not to make comparisons to our 9/11. And you come back really valuing and appreciating every moment you have, and how lucky we are to, at least in New York, escape another terrorist attack.
yes, when these things happen, besides my incomprehension that someone could kill,
Yes.
Just random people like that, I come back with a great, or anyway, have this great reverence for the American way, that we hopefully self-contained, so we are not doing things
Yes, yes.
like that.
Well, and how lucky we are in New York that we all basically get along, that we have so many different cultures and nationalities, and we all get along.
So as you complete or are working on the editing of the sheep extravaganza,
That's what it is.
U.S. European
Right.
trends in sheep herding, do you start looking around, or do subjects find you for the next one, if you get called, so to speak, to do another one?
Well, I'm always thinking about what's the next thing I want to do? What's the next project? What's the next adventure? And I'm thinking right now, what I'd like to do is have some kind of a experience with a raptor and a hawk landing on my arm, or somehow. And there are opportunities in England to do that, in certainly West Virginia and other areas. So that is my next project.
Animal-centered.
Right, yes. It seems
so to
that
speak,
way. Yeah.
You and nature,
Right.
as it were. I was very interested in what you were talking about, the collegial atmosphere around the academy. Would you talk a little bit more about that? When did you meet, and when were the opportunities to talk? What did you talk about?
They serve lunch every day and dinner every day, and it's open seating. And at lunch, you wait in line and you serve yourself at a buffet, and dinner you are served, and you have wine on the table and meet other people. And certainly conversations are the key point, and the reason why you don't. The food is excellent and wonderful, but you go for the conversation. And it is a very open kind of atmosphere. And the American Academy in Rome is the only academy that has a cross-section of educational avenues. That the other academies, all of the artists or art historians are in one academy, and then maybe all the scientists are in another, and maybe the linguists are in another one. But the American Academy, from the get-go, from the early 1900s, has always been interdisciplinary.
Right.
Thank you. So that really makes it electric and fun. And you get ideas and cross-sections of people chatting.
How long is a stipend for?
Well, as I was a visiting artist, and you can go up to 2 months at a time. The fellows are there for 1 year or more, and you have to apply. In both cases, you apply, and you are accepted.
And how many of you were there when you were there?
There are about, I want to say, 80 people.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and probably, there would be at any one time, I was a visiting artist, but that category, maybe 20 visiting.
Do you live on site?
Yes, yes.
And they can accommodate 80 people?
Mm-hmm. They
That's
own quite a
interesting.
bit of property.
Sounds beautiful,
yeah,
is
oh,
it?
it's wonderful. It's a Stanford White facility.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And it's lovely. It's the whole, you walk, they have artifacts on the walls that from the ground beneath where the academy is, you know, in the outside walls. And they have olive trees that they harvest every year, and I participated in gathering the olives for the for the olive oil that they will use in the kitchen.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, it's extraordinary.
That is extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. And they have an organic garden. Alice Waters plans the menus from Berkeley, and so the food is excellent.
Was your family, I'm sure they were outdoorsy, were they?
Yes, very much so. We skied together as a family and played tennis. And
were they also artistic? Scientific?
my mother was, and my grandfather was an architect. So there is that
Visual
gene,
perception.
yeah,
I was
there.
thinking for some time, you know, there's a big talk about STEM, and all the kids have to now get interested in that. And at what point do conversations in our lives nurture or direct our interests? So if we come from an actor family, you know, they're talking about scripts or whatever, and so that's the world that they're hearing about or participating in or learning. And if you're in a different kind of family or a different environment, you hear other things. Although I have two friends who are research scientists, and their son said, I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist. So partly it has nothing to do with what's around you. It's the call from within. When you adjusted to coming to Boston, what did you have to learn?
To Boston?
Yes.
Or to New York?
Well, that's true. Which would you
Either
prefer?
one.
Yeah.
Either one. When we moved to Boston, it was a huge change. I had grown up in Seattle, but I certainly had lived other places and traveled quite a bit with my family. But East Coast is very different from the West Coast, and there was a cultural.
Could you explain that?
But
No, I mean it. I think that's true.
I think the East Coast people are so intent and so intense in terms of education and what they will do. They're driven. Where on the West Coast, things are a little more relaxed, and perhaps sports are emphasized more than they are, when I was growing up, than on the East Coast. That's probably not totally accurate, but it's at that time for me it was an awareness.
And the difference between Boston and New York when you moved to New York?
Well, I had to figure out how to make New York mine, and it was a difficult transition. I was married to a priest. I had never lived in New York, certainly had visited, but I decided that the way I could make New York mine was to run the New York City Marathon. That way I ran through all 5 boroughs. I did it, I completed it, I got my medal, and it changed my outlook for being in New York. It made it certainly much more livable for me.
Because of the camaraderie?
That, and I achieved the marathon. I had never run a marathon before. I ran all 5 boroughs. It was right after 9/11. The people were there to cheer you on. They pulled you along the route. So it was pretty terrific.
Thank you. Well, this has been most interesting. So you have to be lucky in life, but you have to plan your own luck. And you have to live an F-stop life, by which I mean you have to find out for yourself what things enrich you and where do you want to go, and then sort of make them happy. What I mean by an f-stop life is, it's a setting on a camera, but when she went digital, she had to override that technology in order to preserve her options. And isn't that a wonderful attitude in life? You know, preserve your options and steer where you wish to go. Another wonderful aspect of Cathy is her comfort in her body, and the fact that when she climbed Mount Rainier, it gave her a confidence that she could handle things. And the same way she chose the New York Marathon, to prepare and to accept the love that came through the urging of the people on the street throughout the 5 boroughs. And to be able to receive is one of the great joys in life. And so please look in your own life, where can you receive? She was also quite wise in defining her role in life vis-a-vis the marriage, for her wise, and to find in herself the next step, to be open to the next step. I like particularly when she likes to film only at certain times of day, because we all live better in one culture or another, and it's important to find what it is. So I'm asking you to do that, and along the way, be kind to everybody, do something sweet, something nice, and be sure to tune in next time.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.